Hey there. Welcome to the Tesla Motors Club podcast. My name is Lewis.
And I'm Mike.
On today's episode, we're going to be touching on FSD Beta 1069 rollout. JD Power released a report that everybody's charging network sucks except for Tesla. Finally, an update on the Tesla Semi. Looking forward to that. And some news around virtual power plants. All that and more on episode number 18, which starts now. Hello. Hey, Mike, how are you doing today?
Doing very well. Thank you very much.
It is a Saturday, a little bit earlier than usual for us. Just a little different.
Well, there's lots to talk about.
Yeah, lots to talk about. Okay, so today's first topic actually is related to today because FSD Beta 1069 finally, apparently, maybe coming out. Sort of. We don't know.
Kind of, maybe. Yeah, cross your fingers, blah, blah, blah.
Elon has pushed this out, or originally claimed it nearly a month ago or so, and then it was August, and then it first week and second week, and it kept getting pushed out. And supposedly it's coming out today, sort of, for some people.
Right. I'm watching. Yeah.
So I don't know about you. I've been looking at the software trackers, and it does not look like anyone has it yet, at least that uses the software trackers. So there's some possibility that they're saving it for 420. I think someone tweeted at Elon like, "Oh, are you going to push it out at 420 because we've now decided this version is a meme by making it 1069 for some reason." Yeah. So let's see. There was basically a tweet earlier this week that Elon, said, this is a big one, guys. This release is huge. Yep. Major code changes. So they want to be cautious. It's not like Elon to want to be cautious, as we've seen. But that's probably a good thing, I guess. And so today, supposedly about 10,000 folks will get it. And then maybe in a week, more people will get it. They're saying, it'll go out to 10,000 customers by the end of next week, and then the week after that, they may release it to everybody in FSD Beta. What I really want to know is when are you going to let more people into the beta?
That's
because
right.
Mike and I are chomping at the bit here. Come on, Tesla.
The safety score is killing me, man.
Yeah, me too. Mine just dropped a few points the last week or so.
Cripping my style.
But yeah, we unfortunately we might have to wait till version 11. I don't know, but
that's gonna hurt.
I don't know. That's gonna be painful. But hopefully they let some more people out in about 2 or 3 weeks. Or more people in, I should say. Oh man. So I guess moving on to our next topic, a little bit more to talk about here. JD Power.
Oh yeah,
the famous JD Power that likes to post random nonsense. No, they post some good stuff. They actually did I guess was it a survey of drivers?
It was a survey.
Yeah, there was. Oh, that's right. It was over 11,000 owners of battery electric vehicles, so BEVs,
not just Teslas, anything
plug-in hybrids.
Yep, anything that had battery for all intents and purposes.
And the plugins, which is obviously not Tesla. So, I guess looking across the board at the industry, I don't know, Mike. Why don't you tell us what they said? What did they find?
Well, no real surprise to anyone that follows this closely, as Tesla was number one. It's a proprietary system. It's a closed system, and the people that use it tend to be much more aware of how to charge their cars in the process. And to be clear, Tesla makes it brain dead simple to use. You pull in or back in, you take the cord, you hit the little button, the flap opens, you plug it in, and you go. I mean, that's pretty painless. I've got 3 EVs in the family, and the other 2 are the more traditional CCS and whatnot. And they are it's painful at some of these chargers. It's just absolutely painful to use.
So what would you describe as being the most challenging thing, right? So like Tesla, obviously real simple, small plug it right in. It knows who you are. It knows what your car is. You don't do anything at the pump
Pretty much.
Or at the non-pump, the
electric
stall, the electric pump. And it just works. So what is unpleasant or what's painful about
So
using the other
I can
ones?
relate a little story that just happened to my wife. She was at a new parking lot in a different town, and she found a charger, but it wasn't one of the normal branded ones we used. There was no way to pay for a charge without using their app. So
Hmm.
she's literally in a parking lot trying to download this app with crappy cell coverage because you're in the basement typically. She finally gets it loaded on. You have to prepay. So she does that. And since she can't get good coverage, she can't get the stupid app to prepay and link up with the charger that she's standing right in front of.
Hmm.
I mean, that's a terrible experience by any stretch. And
Yeah.
that's pretty typical, actually. You know, I've had it happen where I was at a brand name. I was at EVgo, or actually, it was EVgo, and there was something wrong with the reader, and it kept saying, "Well, your phone's out of range." Dude, I'm right next to you. Phone's out of range.
So
So,
you think that, for some reason, all of these or many of the companies providing these charging solutions, they're going the app route, and you think that's a huge negative compared to the traditional, like, here's a credit card, just
well,
charge me.
all right. So Tesla's interesting. Tesla owns the stack. So they've signed a contract with the property owner. We will rent this land and give you a slice of the money that we earn. But they own and take care of the power. They own the charger system. They own the maintenance. They own the support. They own the cars, or they built the cars. They're using it. So it's a closed loop.
Mhm.
Take EVgo. They'll put a charger in, but they don't own the land. They've signed a contract like everybody else, but they don't service their own gear. Generally, it's third-party support for the gear. And they're one of the better ones, which means if I call them up and say, "Hey, I've got a problem," somebody picks up the phone and they'll generally give me a credit, like a $5 credit because I couldn't charge.
Sure.
If you go to some of the smaller chargers, the no names, as I call them, there could be 3 or 4 different companies involved. And the one I have down the hill for me has an app, but nobody picks up at the 800 number when there's a problem. And
Sure.
the app is used because that's how they remote manage the charger.
Gotcha.
Um, and that charger in particular is kind of troublesome because there's no way to pay other than the app. There's no card reader,
Sure.
so you're kind of stuck.
So really, it's just kind of like the point of sale system for Tesla, or not for Tesla, sorry, for EV charging third parties
It's
is
very
just kind of
fragmented.
lacking right now,
It's
and
very
there's not a
fragmented.
consistent way. Whereas, like, gas pumps are standardized across even internationally, right? I use a gas pump in the
Well,
U.S. I use one in
you
other
say that,
countries.
but
It's pretty
the
similar.
the pump is standard. In other words, the
Hmm.
nozzle and the pumping mechanism is standard. But I've had issues with the interface
Okay.
where I don't know if the gas company that's selling can skin the interface,
Mm,
but they've got their own crapware installed, and you got to cycle through them. Are you going to
sure.
use your coupon points? Are you going to do this? You're going to put your phone. Just sell me the gas.
Right. Right. That's true.
and
Yeah. I
and I've
mean, Tesla has a great system though, right? So theirs, I agree with you. It's just like brain dead simple. You don't need to
it
know
is
anything, and it works.
definitely the way to
Um,
go.
I'm wondering though, is like Tesla's also going to suck when they open it up, right? Because other people don't have a Tesla, doesn't know who you are, so are they going down the app route?
They
Um,
if Tesla in the US follows what they did in the EU, it's going to be through the app.
sure,
You'll pull into the slot, you'll plug your car in, you go to the app and you say, "I'm at charger blah blah blah, please start charging."
right.
So if the app doesn't work for any reason, bad cell coverage, no Wi-Fi, whatever they've done,
Mhm.
you're kind of screwed.
Right. Yeah. So it's really it's more of the I guess that Tesla is so integrated and convenient when you have the car and the charger, and if you as soon as you don't have that integration, it's maybe painful right now with how folks set it up. Um, what about I guess the other thing is, what about your experience with pumps or with charging stalls that don't work, right? If you come across obviously, like, so would you rate Teslas much better there as well? They generally work compared to the third party ones.
I can count on one hand how many times I've pulled into a supercharger that has not worked in the last year of owning my Model 3.
Hmm.
One time it was because there was something wrong. It just didn't work. The other 2 times, somebody had gotten nasty, and one had run over and hit the charger, and someone else had cut a cord.
Okay.
So, I mean, they're generally speaking very, very reliable. That's not been the case in my experience using other third-party EV chargers. And there was actually a study released in California that says something like 25% of all public chargers are broken for some reason.
Ooh.
And I think they're being generous based on my personal observations. I think they're generous. I think it's probably close to 35% or more are dead for a number of reasons. Either whoever runs it has turned it off. I actually saw that one of the local city halls. They had the charger set up that was free. I pulled in on a Sunday afternoon, and someone in City Hall had turned it off. And there's no recourse. I mean, I've seen them disconnected. Someone got tired of supporting it, so they just literally cut the cord and walked away. I've seen the panels are so scratched and graffitied you can't see what you're doing.
Oh man, that's not good.
Some of the older EA chargers that we have around here, since we're in Southern California, they put them in where they face the sun all day, and the covering actually turns yellow and the screen turns yellow, and you're sitting there kind of trying to see what's on the screen, and you really can't.
That's unpleasant.
It's very unpleasant,
especially when you really need a charge. Yeah, Adam, one of our producers, added a comment. He said that he's come across chargers in locked parking garages. So like late at night, it's like parking garage is locked, you can't get to it. And it's like, well, your navigation app doesn't know that.
So here's another problem, and this is something that's a personal issue because we have it, and that is the BMW i3 we have is a 2015, uses CCS. And now that car has been produced since 2014, so it's not necessarily a new EV. It's been around a while.
Sure.
EA chargers, Electrify America chargers, which is owned by Volkswagen because they got bit by Dieselgate. That's the only reason we have Electrify America. They have CCS. They went live like in 2018 or so. Their CCS chargers will refuse to charge the BMW because they've got these huge liquid cooled CCS connectors that literally distort the side of the car. And you have to go through this little shing-ding of holding up the cable and trying to reach over and turn the charger on and make sure the handshake takes place. It's just ridiculous. And I've seen people with high-end Porsches doing this. I've seen the Mach 3s doing this. So you've got a company who claims, well, it's a problem with the car, but the cars were on the road long before EA was even thought of. It's not the car. It's whoever designed the charger. And
or at least the charger does not support a wide enough form of the technology or something of the standard, but
you as a consumer, you've got no recourse. I mean, if you're dead and you're on no charge, that's your charger. I mean, what do you do?
Yeah, no, that's fair. And folks aren't going to blame their car, right? They're going to blame the charger when they go to a charger that doesn't work because they know other chargers do work, right?
Yeah.
So it looks like, hey, YOLO in the chat.
Hey.
YOLO added a comment. He said he took a 3K, I'm assuming miles, 3,000 mile round trip, Tennessee to New Hampshire and back, and supercharging was flawless. So there you go.
Buddy. Absolutely.
Tesla's network seems to work. I wonder, it sounds like the biggest pain point that you're describing, though, other than, their stuff just not working, which is certainly a problem that needs to be resolved, is really that whole point of sale system, the app integration. Obviously the chargers need an internet connectivity to work in their network through the app, right? They're doing.
Yep.
I shouldn't say obviously. It's possible they could do something with short range or Bluetooth or other things, but they're not. They're doing it via network or cellular connectivity. Really, in the early days, they always were talking about free Wi-Fi or having good Wi-Fi at charging stations, and it's like if you guys actually did that, or even if you charged for it, it would at least having that Wi-Fi signal there would improve the ability for folks to download your app and actually use it. So it's kind of, I don't know. I kind of feel like it's a mistake that they kind of glossed over that whole side of providing that service.
So Carl had a comment that I just saw scroll, and he was saying that the heavy heads of the charger can actually break off the port on the Roadsters. And yeah, I've heard stories of that. I've never had a Roadster, so I couldn't verify that.
I mean, Carl's the expert on Roadsters. If you haven't seen that podcast or listened
I'm
to that
telling you.
podcast episode, go listen to it. Carl's fantastic.
But just my own experience dealing with that stupid connector in my BMW, I can easily believe it, because you can watch the body panel kind of flex, when you plug this thing in.
Right.
A little scary.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd be a little concerned. It's one of the things. It's like, it's unfortunate that the open standard, or I guess the collective standard that everyone's moving to, is just a really bulky, unpleasant to use port by comparison. Like Tesla's port is so tiny, and yet it's fast enough and it works really well.
But here's the deal. Okay, here's the deal. Why do Apple products work so nicely? They're designed by one person, generally speaking. One person has the vision and says, this is what we're doing, come hell or high water. Sure. Tesla, pretty much the same thing. One person had a vision, says we're doing it this way, come hell or high water. That CCS connector, that's a committee design. That's a bunch of people trying to compromise in a room because they want to go home at 5 o'clock.
Yeah, that's fair. Designed by a committee is usually not great.
Generally speaking.
Oh man, let's see. Got a few more comments, it looks like, in the chat.
Oh, I can imagine.
Adam posts, anything involving needing objects seems not as good. Phones do not get reception, charge points, key tag, get lost, etc. Plug and go is ideal.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, I still feel like, Adam, I agree. I go back to the, credit cards and all that stuff. Sure, it's a pain. You got to get out. You got to read the screen. It's awful now. Gas stations, they do those stupid commercials and they try to do all this extra nonsense. So they're over time making the experience worse, in my opinion. But like that same original core concept of you pull up, you stick the thing in your car, you swipe a credit card, you're done. Like that's so much, to me, more convenient than having an app. The app will only make sense if there's one app for everywhere, which is not going to happen when you've got all these different companies competing and arguing and fighting over it. Well, so I don't know.
You say that, and I'll tell you that the proof of what you just said is the fact that most of us rely on something called PlugShare, which is it's a way to find a charger that you can work with.
Yeah.
I shouldn't have to have an app to go find a charger I can work with.
Right.
It's just nuts.
Yeah, that's true.
But I am a fan of RFI keys. I find the little key tag, RFI chip to be very effective. If I have to use something like that, and if I have to get out of my car, I prefer to use that over my phone every day of the week.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that's fair. I mean, I don't know. It's going to be hard to imagine other companies doing as well at it at Tesla, like you said, purely from the committee standards and, such a fragmented marketplace. It doesn't surprise me at all that the whole JD Powers thing found, again, Tesla #1 for charging stations. And they actually segmented it. It's both superchargers, like the level 3 and the level 2 chargers. They said both of them, I believe, were superior, with Tesla coming in first. Something like, I think Electrify America was like #3 or something on one of them. It was interesting to see. So
yeah, I'm not a fan of EA on several reasons. I've had really good luck with ChargePoint. If I had to pick, the most reliable has been Tesla, but my #2 most reliable that works across all 3 of my cars has been ChargePoint. EVgo is a very, very close second. And the only reason I put it in second is there just isn't as many of them as there is the ChargePoint.
Gotcha. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with Doug's comment. He said, I'd use the phone NFC over an extra RFID key tag. Yeah. I mean, let's be honest here. One of the greatest innovations of Tesla is that my cell phone is my car key. I don't have a car key that I worry about. Yeah, I've got the card in my wallet. I've never had to take it out. I use my cell phone everywhere I go. The fact that they're like, here, have another thing you have to carry, another fob, another thing. I don't want that. I don't want to deal with that.
I'm going to throw a twist at that. And I'm going to explain why I'm a fan of the RFI. And that's because I got 3 teenagers.
Sure.
And they piggyback off my charging accounts. And it's far easier to give them a little card that they can keep in the car or put on their
Sure.
keychain, then fight with them about installing the app, updating the app, use the app. They got the attention span of a gnat. So, just using the cards, it's just far easier for me.
I feel like young people should have no issue using an app, but
You'd be surprised.
I understand though.
It's not
everyone's
Spotify.
a giant
It's not
nerd.
YouTube.
Oh man. Yeah, I agree with Yolo's comment. Tesla navigation, the supercharger planning, it does work really well. It's just again, it's easier for a place like Tesla because it's like Apple, they are doing the whole thing, the whole vertical end to end, all the integration is Tesla. So it's a lot easier to make that whole experience better. And so I can't imagine another company doing that as well as a third party. Well, who knows?
Another company might not. But who may are the feds. Surprisingly enough, the federal.
I'm sorry. I'm dumbfounded right now that Mike is basically saying the government will do a better job than a company. I'm sorry. That's just
might. So they put out some new guidelines, and they're basically saying we want chargers every 50 miles, major highways, which is a good thing. We want the charger 1 mile, no more than 1 mile off the major highway, which is also a good thing because I've had to go chase chargers in the middle of town. That's not fun.
Right.
They're saying minimum of 4 chargers at 150 kilowatts each. That's good.
Sure.
Mm-hmm. I mean, if they can pull that off and mandate that can really help our infrastructure along. And they've got a big enough stick to swing that they can probably push it.
So speaking of this charging networks, there has been a leak around Tesla's, we all know Tesla's opening up their charging networks. We've talked about it on the podcast before. There's been a leak, a supposed leak. We're assuming it's accurate. The source on Twitter is usually pretty accurate. He does a lot of, gets a lot of leaks. That basically it showcased an app of how Tesla chargers will be accessible from non-Tesla drivers, basically. And it looks like there's going to be 2 tiers. There's going to be a pay-as-you-go where you go up and you pay a certain rate, and then there's a discounted rate if you have a membership subscription, where they'll actually offer a subscription because subscriptions are the future. Everyone wants you to have a
Everybody
subscription.
Wants a subscription.
Everything's a subscription. Subscriptions and microtransactions. That's going to take over the world. But yeah, so it'll be interesting to see what that is. We don't know what the rates will be. We don't know when that'll be released, but we'll obviously let you know once that comes out. But on that topic, again, even taking a step further, how about the Tesla semi mega chargers that are now called semi chargers? What a terrible name.
We're only going to semi charge you.
Yeah, it might charge your truck, maybe. It's semi going to charge it. But so we finally have some released info about the Tesla semi truck. So Mike, why don't you break down a little bit about what's new, what's been shared? What are we seeing here? I think there's some tax incentive stuff. There's some specs on the truck.
Part of the tax package that was just signed into law is a tax rebate discount deal for the semi trucks. It's like $40,000. But some inquiring minds have also noticed that some states are also offering tax incentives on the electric trucks. And so the question now is, well, if I as a company were to buy an electric semi and I get my federal credit, can I pick up the state credit and stack the two together? Which led to the whole conversation about maybe I ought to buy trucks and start flipping them like we do the Ys and 3s right now.
Yeah, I mean, so as Mike said, the federal one, 40,000, that's part of that new bill, that they just signed into law. The climate change, whatever. There's like a million things involved in that. It's a really interesting bill though, so check it out. But for the EV side, so 40,000 federal, and then California, for example, has 120,000 supposedly.
That's what I've heard.
You add those together, that's $160,000 tax rebate. When
the truck's free.
The truck only costs $150,000 for the base model. So I would like my free $10,000 plus throw in a free Tesla semi truck, please. How do I get in on that deal? Yeah.
And here you thought the Cybertruck was a deal.
I mean, that sounds like an amazing deal. So obviously we don't know if that's going to work out. we don't know if those prices are going to hold. So amongst all of this, Tesla has removed the button for pre-ordering the Tesla Semi. I'm not familiar with them. Nothing's come out yet of them saying, canceling reservations or saying, they're going to do anything about those. But they're certainly not letting us make reservations anymore.
Oh, darn. I was going to do that right after the show, but yeah.
I mean, I would for an extra free 10 grand.
But there's some interesting numbers behind the scenes on this. So
okay.
Last year, there was about 2,000 electric trucks on the highway total. Not a lot. But they're saying by 2025, they're estimating somewhere in the neighborhood of 55,000 EV trucks on the highway.
Wow. That's a big jump.
So they're
wanting a lot of battery packs.
I think a lot of people in the background behind the scenes are trying to push really, really, really hard to get these EV trucks on the highway and get some of the diesel ones off. Now,
yeah, I mean, realistically, getting the semi trucks replaced is probably going to do more, or is going to have a bigger impact than I would say most people upgrading their cars, right? Because the amount of, if you look at an individual truck and the amount of emissions it puts off versus the average car somebody owns, I would imagine the trucks are putting out way more.
So I think what has got a lot of the experts interested in the EV truck in particular is the idle condition. So down here in Los Angeles, Port of Los Angeles, we've got a terrible problem with air pollution. And it's not because of the diesel trucks themselves, it's because the diesel trucks are sitting there idling for hours on end. And they've tried a lot of different things. They've tried to say, well, you can only do it between, certain hours of the day. You're only allowed to idle a certain amount of time. But the bottom line is the trucks are down there. There's a lot of them and they're idling constantly. And that's not their efficient use of diesel fuel. So if you could replace a quarter of them with EV, that's a huge impact right there.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, and so to give the folks at home some information around this, there's about, I believe when I was looking up, there's about 2 million semi trucks in the U.S.
Yeah, it's a lot.
that are
more than people think.
There's a lot of them, right? I mean, truck drivers, one of the highest or the biggest jobs in the U.S., right? In many states, it's like the most employed job. But so there's about 2 million of them. Like Mike said, we're looking for trying to hit about 55,000 of them or so in the next 3 years, which would be insane to ramp up that quickly, especially with the battery packs. So the current specs on them, there's two options. It looks like there's about a 300-mile battery pack one and about a 500-mile battery pack one. And what I found interesting about that is Tesla's claiming these are the specs at fully loaded 82,000 pounds, gross combined weight.
Yeah, but it's probably flat level ground with a tailwind.
I mean, yeah, like, is that on a decline? Like, what are how are we measuring that distance? But I mean, if they can pull it off, that's going to be amazing. And I thought it was interesting. I actually didn't know 80,000 pounds is actually the federal limit on how heavy a truck is allowed to be, a normal truck. Because they don't want it to damage roads and bridges and things like that. So they're fully loading a truck to the federal limit, saying you're going to be able to get 300 or 500 miles. The charging, they're claiming fast charging. Originally, they said you would get your fast charging in like 30 minutes and you'd basically fully charge, I think, or something along those lines. It was like almost complete charge. Now they're saying, no, it's 70% of range, which is probably the bottom 70% of your battery pack, right? Because we all, those of us that have EVs know
up and
it slows down the more full the battery becomes. So still though, that's impressive. A 30-minute recharge to get 70% of your range. That's not bad. I mean, and they're able to do highway speed limits at 5% grade. That's now the interesting thing is they're not saying at 5% grade at highway speed limit how many miles you're going to get when you're loaded, right? But like still, it is impressive.
Or when it's 30 degrees.
Or exactly. That's the other big one. Battery pack temperatures, climate control, the HVAC. There's a huge, factor in that. I mean, I would imagine we're not looking at using these for like air conditioned trucks anytime soon, because that's going to be another drain on the on the battery. But
I would see them more as the short haul, not the long haul.
That probably makes sense. Doing like logistics centers or things like that.
Just based on my own experience, my Model 3 driving around Arizona and back through the mountains, like through Flagstaff, that is just hell on your range. And 80,000 pounds trying to go up a 10% grade for any length of time is just going to really rip your battery range to nothing.
Right. Yeah, and it looks like so. Thanks, Adam. One of our producers, he basically shared. This is a quote or this is an excerpt from Canary Media. They noted that heavy duty trucks are responsible for about 70% of carbon emissions from the U.S. Uh, medium and heavy duty transportation sector.
Yep.
So again, not 70% of all carbon emissions in the U.S.,
It's
but
just from that
from the
one.
medium to heavy duty transportation sector, it's 70%. And a greater share of the air pollution that's harmful to humans obviously comes from transportation because you're around where people are, and it's in cities and things like that. And then also about 22% of those emissions come from the heavy duty vehicles that drive less than 250 miles a day. So if you've got a truck, semi that can do 300 or 500, I'd say 500 is realistic, right? You only have to charge the 70%. That's probably what you would want to do for that. That's going to, really help out a big amount of, or carve out a bunch of carbon emissions and reduce it.
What I'd like to see is the statistics for particulate pollution, because that's what Port of Los Angeles is all about. Is the super high level particulate, because diesel puts out that really fine particulate matter, even with the scrubbers and filters and whatnot they use to try to reduce it.
Right. Yeah, it's definitely, I mean, I have to say, of all the Tesla stuff, so obviously I have a Tesla. I love my Plaid. It is amazing. It is so fun to drive. But I definitely feel like the Semi is probably more impactful and influential in the greater good
picture,
or the greater mission of what Tesla's trying to accomplish. So I'm glad they finally gave us an update, and I'm really hoping that they're going to give us realistic timelines on releases soon, or we're going to actually start seeing them in use in production. I think there's been some orders. There's rumors that come out of like,
wasn't it Pepsi that was supposed to have gotten first dibs?
I think so. One of the big companies like that has like the first 100 of them, or so many semis that we'll see. It'll be really interesting to see how it works. But yeah, it was also the other interesting thing about the spec was they're saying there are 3 motors, which is originally they were saying 4, so they actually did drop it down to 3 motors, which is kind of funny. I'm wondering if that's going to happen with the Cybertruck as well, right? The Cybertruck claims there's the 3 motor and the 4 motor. The Semi was supposed to be 4 motor only, and now it's only 3 motor. So again, they find it has the power. So
you'll get the 4 when you buy the Plaid truck.
Right, exactly. Yeah, I agree, Adam. A ride along with auto journalist, like Car and Driver or something, would be interesting. That would be cool. I'm looking forward to actually having real ride alongs, because it's easy to give these specs and say this is what it can do. It's another thing to see real world,
baby.
What is real world testing actually going to show? So it's exciting stuff.
And so interesting. So we were just talking about the range issue with weather. Mm-hmm. So there's actually a weather condition that doesn't really impact our cars very much because they're streamlined, but these trucks have got the drag coefficient of a brick. And when you're driving down the highway through the desert and you've got a crosswind or a headwind, which you usually have, I can't imagine their range is going to get much help with that.
Right. For sure. It's definitely going to be, have a bigger impact on a semi truck than a normal car. And, the interesting thing too about like range and like longevity of these things, right? So like a normal car, I don't know the stat. If I had to guess though, the average car probably makes it into the 100,000 and something mile range during its lifetime. I'm not sure that many cars make it.
I think the newer cars are probably much better.
Well, they certainly could go higher, but like, I don't know. At least in my experience in my life, anecdotally, usually I see people getting, kind of junking cars, maybe mid to high 100,000s or so. But obviously there's been the Teslas and other things that people have done million-mile, runs or close to million-mile runs. Tractor trailers often, log way more miles. Obviously, they get upwards of 1 million miles. I'm wondering if a EV tractor trailer is actually going to be able to push that envelope as well, where you're going to do 2 million, 3 million, or is it that the battery is not going to be able to handle it? I'm not sure.
Well,
obviously.
So if you think about it, what kills a car, an ICE car, for 300,000 miles. It's the
Mhm.
fact that when the engine and the transmission wear out, they're really expensive to replace.
Right.
And it's also a very short lifetime. What I mean by that is a typical model year is what, maybe 5, 6, 7 years. And then the
Right.
manufacturer carries parts for another 10. And you
Sure.
pay a lot of money for that. Trucks are a bit different. Trucks will run 100,000, 150,000 miles. They tend to be maintained better. They tend to run in a much tighter RPM range. So they're more optimized for longevity.
Mhm.
However, they still wear out. What's
Right.
going to wear out in an EV? Really? Tires, brakes, maybe shocks.
And the battery eventually.
The battery eventually, yeah.
But yeah.
Which makes me wonder if on the diesel or on the trucks, if they'll have replaceable modules in the battery.
Like, that was an early days EV concept, right? Of the whole
It
swappable
was,
batteries.
yeah, it
And a lot
was.
of people were against it with the notion of, whoa, 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 I'm not taking my really nice, good battery that I just got in my new car and swapping it for some junky
So
used
some beat
battery
to
and
hell
leaving it
battery.
there. Right. Like, so there's that whole concept. But I agree with you. When it comes to semis and trucks, it almost makes sense, even if it's not swappable where you're like doing it to charge, which was the original concept. Oh, I don't have to charge, I just exchange battery, which is like, you have any idea how heavy these batteries are? That's not an
Oh
easy
my
thing
God.
to exchange.
One can
but
only imagine in a truck. I mean, the mega
oh
pack
yeah, I
for a
mean, a
reason.
truck would be worse. They're doing megawatt hours and stuff like that.
Ugh.
But I would imagine, though, I could see that being a replaceable component in commercial spaces for semi trucks of actually being something that you just replace. You replace the battery pack, which again you can do with a car, but it is much harder to do, and it's very third party, and people
Oh
aren't
yeah.
going to recommend it. Right? It's that's kind of a gray area. Although if Carl's still here, if you have a roadster, Carl's probably your man.
He is your man. He'll take care
So
of it.
he'll know about how to swap a battery. But for a semi truck, like I could see, big trucking companies buying battery packs and swapping them out as part of their maintenance, regime, right? That would be cheaper than buying all new
I can
trucks.
also see, if they do it right, when they swap the pack out, the old pack gets a once over. Any bad cell packs would get replaced. Instead of the whole pack being bad, you would
That's true.
replace the cell packs within that overall pack.
That's
I mean,
true.
that's the only thing that makes sense to me in running something that big, that long. It's a different environment than the car.
Exactly. It's one of those things where it kind of opens up a lot of other avenues for how you can handle maintenance and long running. And yeah, YOLO mentions, it's the same
Yep.
as replacing fuel tanks for diesel, which I agree it's a thing that people do.
You have
Right? Like,
to.
why
I mean,
you have to, right? So why wouldn't you? So yeah, I mean, who knows? Tesla is certainly not the only company trying to do the semi truck. There's other competitors. I think Tesla, as usual, was the leader in the regular automobiles, regular cars. And I think they're in a good position, especially with their supply chain for battery packs, to actually make a big splash in the semi. Even if you ignore all the other great stuff, right? They have great technology in their motors, they have great technology in their drivetrains, all that kind of stuff. But I think, like, the problem with semi trucks is you need really good motors, which
yep.
Tesla has. Their inverters are really efficient, and the stuff that they have, but you also need those batteries. That's probably like your biggest pain in the butt, is getting those batteries.
Enough
And
of them. Yep.
Tesla has the supply chain on lock for batteries, right? They can produce the
Well,
batteries. They have the deals with the manufacturers of batteries.
so GM just announced they're building a new domestic
Sure.
battery manufacturing facility here in the U.S.
Sure, and in like 5 years, when they start making batteries, I'll be interested
Yep,
in that. But yeah, I mean, well, that's kind of my point. Is there's a ramp up time, right? Like
there
Tesla's been
is.
building battery packs, for years. Now other companies are starting to, but battery manufacturing facilities, I should say. So yeah, it's definitely, again, I feel like Tesla has a good advantage here, and yeah, these semis are going to be revolutionary. I wish I had got in and pre-ordered one to get that free money. I'm still upset about that.
Hey,
You could
I got a
probably
reservation.
flip
I'll
the
sell you
darn.
for cheap.
Yeah, I was gonna say, you could probably flip the damn thing and like buy a plaid with it, right? If you flipped it,
uh,
put it towards a roadster.
true enough.
Man,
So
alrighty, let's see.
yeah. So
What's our next topic?
well, I
I'm
just
all
want to comment.
flabbergasted.
Adam put up a comment about vehicles sold today can remain on the road for 30 years, and I agree with a caveat. And the vehicle may remain on the road for 30 days, but you're not, or 30 years, but you're not going to get software support for 30 years. And for a vehicle like Tesla, where if you have no software, you've got a brick, that becomes crucial.
Yeah, I mean, I would argue the car still works without updates, right? It's not like the software goes bad. It's just relatively you feel like it's
You
you
think
want to throw it
they
in.
won't remote brick that car at the end of 20 years for a liability?
Okay, maybe 20 I could see it. I could see it. You're not wrong in that it might come out, but yeah, hopefully we don't go down that road. Please, Elon, don't start doing that. Not that I will keep my car for 20 years,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
anyway.
Moving on.
Moving on. So
Moving on.
Tesla's virtual power plants. I don't know
Yep.
if you heard, if everyone heard about this. They actually did a virtual power plant event where they tested Tesla's virtual power plant. So Mike, rip into this. Tell us about what this is for
So
those that have not
so
heard about it.
so this is, you call it virtual power plant, micro power plant, whatever. It's the ability to take the existing power walls and use them to augment the existing power infrastructure in the case of need. So instead of spinning up additional power plants, or what they call peakers, they call them peakers, they can actually reach out to all the homeowners that have got these power walls and say, hey, we'll cut you a deal if you let us use your stored power, for an hour or two or whatever the arrangement is, and kind of supplement what we have already. And they did a test with, I think it was PG&E up north, and by all accounts, it was very successful. They've extended it down here to SCE now, Southern California Edison. So I think that might be a wave of the future in a way. Right now, it's just Tesla, but I'm wondering if there'll be other Powerwall manufacturers getting in on the action, as it were.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, so I think this is cool. Like this is
From a tech point, absolutely.
this is such a cool technology, and it's basically like it's kind of like a big part of the original vision of doing this in the first place, right? Like distributing power
It
packs and
was
battery
Elon's
packs.
original vision.
I mean, so this is literally decades in the making. We're over a decade in the making. So it's so cool to finally see. The crazy thing was that they were getting $2, I think it was, per kilowatt that they contributed. Which is like, what?
Yeah, that's a lot.
$2 a kilowatt hour. Yes, please sign me up.
Yeah, but even that's a whole lot cheaper than building a new peaker and trying to maintain it.
Sure. The crazy thing about the economics behind this, right, is that it's actually cheaper for the power companies to buy the power at a ridiculously inflated rate from, Powerwall homeowners. And yet it's still a financial advantage to the Powerwall homeowners where they're going to make money off of their power.
So let's walk through it. If I was a power company and I wanted to build a new peaker, I'd have to find the land. I'd have to get federal and state approval to build the peaker, which can take years, if ever. I have to build it. I have to find some way to source fuel for it, whether it be oil, gas, whatever. I mean, we're talking probably a 15-year lead time to get a peaker up and running in the best of circumstance. I can pay you $2 a kilowatt and be way ahead of the game. You've already paid to have your wall put in. Not my problem. I just got to make sure I can get the power from you into my grid. That's easy.
Right. And so for those that maybe don't know what a peaker is or what Mike means by that. So again, the idea is, power is this on-demand, constant flowing thing. So there's not like this ability where power companies don't store power. They generate it as you need it, right? So like you turn on, everybody's home kicks on the AC and needs more power. The power plant has to quickly ramp up to provide that. So there's this constant flow of power, like this baseline that they're putting out. And what they do is they don't keep these like plants just running all the time. They have, things that are called like peaker plants where they basically turn them on just for peaks, just for that, like when you have that spike of power demand.
Smooth out that hump on the power consumption.
Exactly. So they're basically a way to quickly ramp up power because the supply has to match demand. Exactly, like Doug posted, supply has to exactly match the demand currently in near real
Because if
time.
it doesn't match, you get blackouts, brownouts.
That's how you get
all those
brownouts
really
and
nasty
blackouts.
events.
Right, exactly. So anyway, so this virtual power plant is a way that if you have Tesla Powerwall, you store power in your batteries. You have that power for an emergency, obviously, but you don't necessarily need 3 days of backup power in your power pack at all time, right? Like if you know there's not a hurricane coming, there's no condition that's likely going to knock out your grid for a week.
Yep.
You can sell back half of the power
So-
that you store, right? Like, and they're going to buy it at a really high inflated rate, so you're going to be making money off of that power.
Even when you recharge it, you'll make money.
What's that?
Even when you recharge it. So
Yeah,
they're going to pay
exactly.
you $2 a kilowatt. It'll cost you 16 off peak to recharge. So you're still ahead of the game.
Or if you have solar, it costs you nothing to recharge it, depending on
Absolutely.
the size of your system. So I mean, I think this is brilliant. I hope that they bring it to Texas. Our energy grid needs it. For those that don't know, our power grid goes out all the time. So I really hope they bring this here. Now I'm gonna pose this question to you. What are your thoughts on, cars have batteries? There's people there. I'm not one of them, but there are people that think it's a good idea.
Yeah, there's people think someone needs a good idea too.
So can you explain a little bit about why Powerwall is likely to happen? It's being tested. It will go happen.
So,
but why do you think cars won't happen for this virtual power plant?
It'll happen. I just don't think it's going to happen to the degree people imagine it will.
Okay.
So on the surface, it sounds like a really good idea. If I've got a Ford F-150 with this huge battery in the back, I can run my house for 3 days off that back. That's what they say.
Mm-hmm.
To do that, though, requires the truck to be built a certain way from the factory. It requires the house to be wired a certain way. It requires a special adapting kit, which I think is $1,500 right now. It's a sizable investment on your part as a consumer to do that.
Sure.
Not a lot of people are going to be that interested in expanding, the electrical capacity of the house that way, unless you're a prepper.
Yeah. You say that term in such a,
well,
Mike's throwing shade at preppers. No,
that's right. Well, there's prepping and then there's preppers. I've been called a Boy Scout more times than I care to think about, because I look at something and say, hey, what if?
Sure.
There's nothing wrong with what if.
Yeah. So, I mean,
but here's the deal with power walls. And this is what people don't realize. The power wall. Okay, let's back up a second. The battery in your car has been designed and built to provide electricity at a very certain rate. High demand, high usage, recharge, high rate, high use, recharge. Your wall is not designed that way. The wall is designed to provide a very steady rate of electricity over a long term, 3 days. It is not designed for high peak loads. In fact, what they're doing, what a lot of companies are doing, they're taking used car batteries, because they're not good for a car anymore, but they're perfect for a power wall. They don't need perfect cells. They don't have to put out 100% capacity.
Sure.
I don't think the economics are going to be there for a car to be parked at your house at the precise time that you need to plug in and generate power for the grid. My wall's on the grid 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. It's never disconnected. It's always there. It's just a lot easier to work with the wall than it is the car.
Yeah, I guess I feel like, from my perspective, like you're right. The batteries and the design of the electrical system of the car is not expecting the same type of load of what you would be to feed the grid. So that's certainly a problem. Your car battery is warranted under a certain amount. Adding extra cycles on it is going to put strain on your battery going out. So now, are the car companies going to say, well, your battery warranty is void if you do this?
You wore it out supplying PGE's grid. Yeah.
Right. Exactly. So there's that whole risk there. And then there's also the economics of the chemistry, right? There's different types of battery chemistries, and you have certain batteries where they make a lot more sense for a power wall versus in a car. So something, for example, the lithium iron phosphate batteries, they're density to weight ratios are not as good as some of the other types of batteries, and yet you don't care how heavy it is when it's just sitting in your garage or it's, on the side of your house. That's not as big of a concern. So I definitely feel like, Powerwall batteries could be more optimized for it. Um, and
So
yeah.
so to add a little more color, Yolo was asking about Powerwall and costing and whatnot. You can buy it. So let's define Powerwall. So Powerwall is just a battery that's running your house. That's really
Mhm.
all it is. I can buy a cheap Powerwall for about $3,500 that can run my house for about 90 minutes to an hour. I mean, this is literally on wheels. It looks like a big suitcase.
Mhm.
Whereas you can also have the more traditional, like the Tesla Powerwall, that's actually mounted to the wall of the house.
Sure.
It's 9 kilowatt hours or 12 kilowatt hours, whatever it is. And you can stack
Mhm.
them. You have 3-4 days worth of power. So
Sure.
it's Powerwall is a really fluid term here.
Right.
Um, I'm
Yeah, I mean,
thinking. Go ahead.
I was just say, for me, when I say Powerwall, I genuinely do mean Tesla's product Powerwall and
Mounted
not
to
the
the
general.
house, bolted to the
Yeah,
wall.
exactly. Um, but yeah, I mean, there is the possibility, obviously to use the car temporarily for it. I think it's generally a bad idea, just in the how I want my car to work, in the longevity of my car. But at the same time, it is a battery. It is there. You could use it. Um, Having the option in emergency, YOLO's, basically saying, obviously, Powerwall's the way to go, but having the option in emergency would be great. You know, Ford is giving you that option with the Lightning.
But it's
Again,
expensive.
it's going to cost you a lot of money.
It's
It's 1,500
expensive.
bucks plus probably rewiring some of the, in your house and other stuff potentially. So I mean, I agree though. Having the option would be nice. I personally, I've even looked at, do I build my own system, right? I used to
Yeah,
be a lineman. I've done
I looked
electrical
at it too.
systems, right? I was a
Our
licensed
our
electrician.
city,
I
our
might build
city,
my own.
yeah, our city codes discourage that a lot.
Of course they do.
They are not friends for the do-it-yourselfer.
Sure, for sure. So it looks like we have a question here. Just to circle back a little, can you confirm the latest news where Tesla's home wall chargers, a minimum of 6, will be allowed to serve as a Tesla charging station?
I
So
did read that.
I personally cannot confirm this
Yeah,
or deny it. I don't have knowledge on this. I mean, I think there are some regulations around how many chargers are required, right? And if you have a certain number of them, you might fall into the category technically. Um, but I don't know, Mike. Have you heard about this? Are you familiar?
I did read it at some point in the last month, an article where they did say that you had to have a minimum of 6 of the
Okay,
destination chargers.
interesting. Um, and that's so that you could basically charge people to charge at your
Yes,
residence.
yes,
Basically, you're gonna charge them money for your
yeah.
electricity
They
access.
wanted a minimum, and I
Yeah,
suspect that's probably a moving target, honestly.
right. And so I guess that kind of makes sense in this grand scheme of things, of like, they don't want random people to just be able to say, "Hey, I'm a Tesla charging spot," and you get there and it's like it's one, trickle
One
charge
charger,
cord.
right?
Right? And it's like, this isn't that helpful. But I could see if someone has decent power infrastructure or they have good solar or things like that, that maybe, yeah, you set up, at least 6 chargers and you let to charge people. Um, yeah, Michael brings up a good point. Maybe like apartment parking lots, it could be a valid thing. Uh yeah, I mean, is this DC to DC chargers or is this level
No,
2
this was
chargers?
level 2. Is what I read was level 2.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, that's certainly easier to do. I don't know. I don't know that I would want people at my house to charging, but I
Yeah,
certainly
I could see
I
it
could
for
I could see
apartment,
apartment complex. I think that makes a lot of sense,
hotel,
certainly.
apartment. Yeah.
Hotels, that's another great one.
The
Or
other thing I could see,
supermarkets or things like that.
the other thing I got, what I can see for supermarkets and apartments though, is where they're mounting the chargers up on a pole,
Mm,
and it's a drop down cord. Um, I want to say it was Seattle that's experimenting with that, and they've had a real high level of success.
Sure.
We'll see.
Sure. Yeah, I will say so. There's a new supermarket that was built near me here in Austin, that has EV chargers, and they have been covered since they built the thing. It's been, I don't know, it's been maybe 6 months or something like that, and
So
it's
they don't
like the
actually
EV.
hook.
They don't actually have EV chargers, or they're not hooked up to something. I don't know. They have all the setup there, but you never see EVs there, and they're always covered. There's no EV charging. I don't need to charge there. It's 2 seconds from my house, so it doesn't really makes sense for me. But obviously there are supermarkets, like there's a Whole Foods, that I go to sometimes. It's a little bit further
Well,
away
so
that
that
has
actually
some.
brings up a question. I'm going to kind of float it to you.
Sure.
When you've got EV chargers like that, they
Hmm.
typically are a J plug. They tend
Yes.
to be a level 2 7 kilowatt station.
Hmm.
So what's going to happen when you've got the guy with the hybrid who can only use level 2 J plug, but you've got the Tesla that can use a supercharger, but he's sitting at the level 2 for 3 hours?
Yeah, I mean that's fair. I mean, I certainly feel like you would hope there would be some level of etiquette. That being
Not
said,
that I've
people
seen.
suck. Yeah, I was gonna say, but people suck, and there's social norms that millions of people completely
uh,
ignore. So are they really social norms at that point? I don't know. I
yeah,
I definitely
more
feel
like
like
guidelines.
a good portion of adults need to go back to kindergarten, and refresh on
No
some of their
kidding.
basics. But yeah, I mean, don't be a jerk, I guess. Like, try not to use a charger unless you need it in some way, or there's a bunch available, and
Yeah,
don't
I bring
you
that up
know
only because we were talking earlier about Tesla opening up their chargers,
mhm.
and I've got a supercharger. It's about 4 miles away. They're 70 kilowatt stations. They're not the really high end, but they work and they're fine. Um, but the interesting thing I saw the other day was two Teslas were parked in the supercharger slot, but they had reached through and grabbed the J plug from the other side and were using that instead because that's free. It's at a Target. So, I
I
mean,
mean,
that's a douchebag move. That really
yeah,
is a
that's
douchebag
super
move.
lame. I mean, maybe that's part of the problem though, is like the economics of it, right? It's like you should, in my mind, thinking about it, I would charge less for the supercharger power than for the slower charging power, almost as like thinking of the concept of the fee of using the stall for some period of time. You know what I mean? So I would almost give a better rate to the person charging quickly,
So,
to
yeah,
incentivize them to use what they can use, rather than I'm going to take this one and let it sit for 5 hours because it's free. It's kind of messed
yeah.
up.
So this was a double whammy. I mean, these two guys are actually, and I'm assuming guys. I'm using that generically.
Sure.
These two people, individuals, were sucking up two supercharger stalls that some other Tesla could have used. At the same time, they're sucking up two J plugs that the hybrid users could have used or need to use because they can't use the supercharger.
Yeah.
That's just bad karma
I
all the
mean,
way around.
part of me is like, that's just being a jerk, and part of me is like, why do people still have hybrids? No, I shouldn't say that. It's easy to judge, but they were the only option for so many years. So, but come on, guys, battery electric vehicles. Let's go. Get these hybrids out of
If
here.
Chrysler offered an upgrade for our Pacifica, I'd take it in a heartbeat. But we can't get them to
Sure,
support what we have, so I'm not holding my breath.
sure. So actually, Mike, do you have solar panels for
I
your
do not.
house?
I
You do
do not.
not. So
And here's why I don't. And
mhm,
we'll wrap right after this. Southern California Edison has actually got a deal where you sign up and you can buy certified green power. We've got solar
mhm,
farms not too far away from here,
sure,
and you can get 100% of your power to your home certified green. They charge you a delivery fee, but
sure.
they give you tax credits, or not.
As if you had
They give
solar.
you power credit as if you had solar.
Okay,
It works out to be I get about 50% of the benefit of solar without actually having to put it in my house.
sure.
And for me, that works out really well right now because we don't
Nice.
plan to be here for the next 10 years. So putting
Gotcha.
solar in with a break even of 8 years is not practical.
That makes sense. Yeah, I have solar. I do not have Powerwall right now. I was supposed to.
Yeah, neither do I.
There's a whole thing. I don't need to get in it on this podcast. We can talk about it in a future episode where basically Tesla messed up and now I'm screwed out of it and I have to do a bunch of things. But I will say I am interested in expanding my solar system because, looking at my latest bill, I think my electric bill was like $300 and something, and I have a solar system. I have a fairly sizable solar system of, it's 11 and change kilowatt hours. But the reduction of my bill is like, I'm saving like $150 a month or something.
My last bill was $410 with a $70 credit.
Right. So I got 150 credit.
Yeah.
But my bill was like $300 and it was just like, okay, I should clearly get a larger solar system. And what was crazy was I had to fight my utility to let me get as large as I did because they looked at it and went, well, we don't want you to get too big of a system more than what you use because we're worried they don't want to lose money.
Yeah.
They don't want to pay me. So there's a hard limit. And I basically had to argue like I'm going to get an EV and I'll use power. And then, of course, what ended up happening is this was even pre-COVID. My wife and I switched to working from home. So our electric usage went through the roof.
Yeah.
Because we now are both home all day long, all the time. And then we also got the EV on top of it. And it's just like, my system is not enough in the summer with the HVAC to handle the load. In the winter, I'll have no electric bill. But in the summer I do. So I was okay. So I was curious. So you effectively have nice. All right. Well, I think that's a good place to wrap up.
I think so.
This has been podcast episode number 18. I do want to thank everybody. There's a whole lot of people in the background, producers of Adam and Doug and Danny and Josh and who am I missing? I'm missing some people, James and others. And I hopefully didn't forget, other people involved. It's been super helpful. As always, we appreciate you guys coming out. Thanks for interacting and participating. We love the questions. We love the comments. If you're on social media, please feel free to like and subscribe. You can always go to teslamotorsclub.com, check out the podcast section there. You can become a supporting member on the Tesla Motors Club website, which also helps out. And again, we love you guys. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. If you have questions, feel free to post them on the forums. Bring the love, bring the hate. It doesn't matter what it is. We'll take it all. Mike and I appreciate it. And we will check you out next time. So I'll see you then.